All right, welcome everybody. Let's do this lesson 12 with the dislocated pinky. Let's do this. So what we need to be solid with is quadratic formula. It's how do we do this? So let's look at the first question here. It's saying, hey, let me fix the camera angle. It says, find all real solutions to the equation x squared minus 6x plus 3, 2x squared minus 4x minus 7 equals 0. So what I did was I just wrote everything out here so it looks nicer to look at. So here, what we got to do is we got to first say that this guy is equal to 0, and then we also have to say that this guy is equal to 0, right? But when we try and solve this, notice you can't factor it. And when you can't factor it, we want to use quadratic formula to be able to solve this. So the point of this video is for me to show you step by step how to use quadratic formula. So here, let's do the setup. Here we have x squared minus 6x plus 3. It's equal to 0, right? And this is the quadratic formula. Okay? It is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Here, if I have this, right, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, right? Here, what is my a? My a is the coefficient of this x squared, and that's 1. What's my b? It's not 6, it's negative 6. And what's my c value? It's 3. So what we need to do is we need to take these three numbers and plug it into the formula. So then let's see how it's done over here. So now here, we're going to follow it step by step. X is equal to, right? What's the first symbol we're going to put always? Negative, okay? What are we going to put in? The b. And every time we substitute, we put parentheses. So negative 6, right? Plus or minus the square root of, right? We're just following this. B squared, right? So I'm substituting a b, so that's negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. And this is all divided by 2 times 1. Okay? Now, being able to substitute all of this into here, that's the first part. But now, we have to actually go through the whole thing. So here, what is negative 6 times, this negative times negative is positive. So this is 6 plus or minus the square root of. Negative 6 squared is 36. Now here, you're doing negative 4 times 1 times 3. And that's equal to negative 12. So this is minus 12 over here, all divided by 2. Okay? So now let's bring this and bring it up here. What do we do after we have this? Well, then this is 6 plus or minus the square root. Well, we could do 36 minus 12, and that's 24. And then we divide this by 2. Now, the thing that's a little bit tricky is, how do I simplify the square root of 24? It's equal to the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. Okay? I could also use square root of 8 and square root of 3, or square root of 12 and square root of 2, or square root of 24 and square root of 1. Oh, sorry. Right? But remember, I want to use this because I can simplify square root of 4, that's equal to 2. And square root of 6 stays the same. The others, like square root of 8, I don't know what it is. Like these, I don't know what they are. But this, I do know what it is. So I want to take this one. So this is going to be 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 6, all divided by 2. Okay? Then what do we do? Well, square root of 4 is what? It's 2. So that's 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 2. Okay? Now what do we do? Here, a nice little trick to go to the next step, what I'm going to show you is, it will be 6 over 2 plus or minus 2 radical 6 over 2. And if you're thinking, what are you doing, Mr. G? How did you go from here to here? Basically, it's from this little trick. If I say, what's a plus 6 divided by 2? What is your first instinct in solving this? You say, okay, Mr. G, I do a plus 6, that's 14 divided by 2, and that's 7, right? But this is the same as doing 8 divided by 2 and 6 divided by 2 and adding them. Let's see, what is 8 divided by 2? This is 4. What's 6 divided by 2 is 3. And notice that the 4 plus 3 is 7, and these two match. So when you have this position here, you're allowed to divide this by the 2 and this whole thing by the 2, and we get this. And then once we get to this point, right, we're almost done. What's 6 divided by 2? It's 3. This is plus or minus. These cancel out, square root of 6. And that's what x is equal to. So then here, you have to say x is equal to 3 plus radical 6, or you could say x is equal to 3 minus radical 6. And that's it. Okay? These take time. You need to practice these questions, okay? It seems like it's a lot to do. Like we literally went from here all the way to this. It takes time, okay? But I will go with you step by step. Let's try and do the next part, right? Because here, when we had that original question over here, right? There are two parts to it. This part and this part. We got to finish this part. And here, well, what do? We take this and make it equal to 0, right? So what I want you to do is, can we factor this, right? With the AC method. AC method, let's see. Does it work? Does AC method work here? What's 2 times negative 7? It's negative 14. And then what's the question you ask yourself for AC method? What two numbers when I multiply give me negative 14, but when I add give me negative 7? Let's see, negative 7 and 2, negative 2 and 7, negative 14 and 1, 14 and negative 1. If you add these, none of you give you negative 4. This is not factorable. Okay? You have to realize that it's not factorable. And if it's not factorable, we need to use quadratic formula. So what I want you to do is, by yourself, try and do this. Do quadratic formula to this so you can see how it's done. Pause the video. Try and do it by yourself. Okay, if you want to see me do it, here it is. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Here, what is my a? My a is 2. What's my b? Negative 4. What's my c? Negative 7. So we're going to plug all of these in here. So then what happens? X is equal to, all right, let's get camera angle is good. Okay. X is equal to, what's the first thing we're going to put in? Negative, right? Then we're going to put my b. My b is parentheses negative 4. Okay? Plus or minus the square root of b squared. So it's negative 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 7. And then we're going to divide all of this by 2. And what's my a? Times 2. Okay? Setting it up should be okay for everybody. There should be no problem for anybody to set this up. Going through it takes a little bit of work. So here, x is equal to, negative times negative is positive, plus or minus the square root of. This is 16. Now here, what are we doing? We're doing negative 4 times 2 times negative 7. Negative 4 times negative 2. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 7 becomes positive 56. So I bring positive 56 here. And I divide that by 4. Okay? But then x is equal to 4 plus or minus. What can we do? This is square root of 72 divided by 4. Now this is the part where everybody freezes a little bit. If I say simplify square root of 72, and if you're like, Mr. G, I don't know how to do this, raise your hand and I will show you how to practice this. But what will it be? Like square root of 72, it's equal to the square root of 9 and square root of 8, but it's also square root of 36 and square root of 2. And notice that 9 is that perfect square, right? What are my perfect squares, right? My perfect squares are like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, right? These are my perfect squares. Notice that 9 is a perfect square, but 36 is the biggest perfect square that goes into the 72. So then x is equal to 4 plus or minus square root of 36 over square root of times the square root of 2 over 4. But then that's equal to 4 plus or minus, what's the square root of 36? Is 6 over 2, 6 radical 2 over 4. Okay? What I want you to do is maybe take a second and just, look at what we've been doing, right? And then once we get to this point, what do? Well, we're going to do that same move we did here. Like, if I have this point, what can I do? I could split it. And that's what you're going to do here. You're going to split it. So here, this is 4 over 4 plus or minus square root of 6 over 2, square root of 6 over 2 over 4. Okay? But then this, how does this simplify? I'll write it over here, that it's also, hold on, from here, let me fix the angle a little bit. My bad. Right here, okay? Let's look at this over here. Oh my God, Mr. G is messing up the camera angle. Sorry, guys. Okay, so from here, this is equal to 1 plus or minus, you see, 4 divided by 4 is 1. But then if I have 6 over 4, right? This 6 over 4, that's equal to 3 over 2 because you're simplifying the fraction. So this is 3 radical 2 over 2. So then x is equal to 1 plus 3 radical 2 over 2. X is equal to 1 minus 3 radical 2 over 2. Okay? This should be my 2 answers. Okay, this was a lot. I know this was a lot. And then it keeps going, right? It took how long? 12 minutes to do 2 problems, right? But when we do math, sometimes these questions are going to take a lot of time, right? Now let's try and go through, in the next video, I'll show you how to do these 2 questions here. We only did the first 2 questions here. Let's try and do the next 2 in the next video, okay? Or if you want, try and do these 2 by yourself. All right? I'll see you.